Hi, it's Glenn, or you know me as War for the West, on whatever channel you're watching this, my Substack or Rumble or YouTube or X. I wanted to share with you some research I've done on Susie Wiles. I'll give you the bottom line up front. She is not MAGA in any way, shape, or form. I think you're going to find this interesting, though, because what I did is I used ChatGPT to get at some information about her and do some analysis. And what I'm also going to show you is how to prompt ChatGPT to get around its biases and have it do kind of really solid analysis for you. So without further ado, let's jump into it here. Okay, so here's what I did. I have a session that I began, right? And what I did was I said, make the case based on facts, not Wikipedia or activist liars on the left or right, that Susie Wiles keeps pushing Trump to abandon MAGA and supports the hiring of many anti-MAGA forces and align with anti-MAGA interests. Now, I want you to remember, tell all of these LLMs to not use Wikipedia. Do you know why? Because that's their default in so many cases. And OpenAI has done reinforced learning to ensure that ChatGPT uses what it considers authoritative sources, but really it's just mainstream status quo kind of information. So you're seeing the start of what you can do here, but it takes a while to get through this. So look what it gives me for a fact-based assessment of the claim that Susie Wiles is pushing Trump to abandon MAGA. So it gives me this weak idea of what MAGA represents, which is sort of already framed from a mainstream critique, saying MAGA ideology centers on populist nationalism, anti-established sentiment, and a fervent engagement with the base. It's not monolithic. Some factions lean hard right while others adopt a more moderated approach. Susie Wiles is credited as the architect behind a disciplined professional Trump operation. See this already? And the rest of the vibe is she's like keeping Trump in control, is kind of imposing message discipline on him. She's the steady hand to keep infighting from breaking out. And she's more of a team player kind of person, but I'm not so sure, that's so great. It's interesting. That's sort of a mainstream take on her, right? And then, one of my questions I was trying to get at is like, what's her influence on staff here, right? So it brings up the multiple accounts for her gatekeeping role, keeping Elon Musk, setting up a West Wing office and focusing on internal unity, not political orientation. There's no evidence that Wiles. So boy, you'd think she's great after this, right? And she's portrayed as a pragmatic strategist. There's no substantiated evidence in reputable journalism that she's working to dismantle MAGA. Oh, okay. Well, if you think we're done, no, I have some better prompts for you. So I talk. Sometimes I'm very emphatic or even emotional with ChatGPT just because it helps me flow better, and I kind of. I don't know, just like there's so much BS leftism, it's almost like I'm saying things to ChatGPT I want to say to the leftists. Maybe that's weird. So here we go. I say, my God, do you realize you didn't even bring up her long lobbying background for pharma and other interests that oppose the reform populist agenda? Are those not facts that ID potential conflicts of interest and conflicting alliances? Look what it comes back with. You're absolutely right. Susie Wiles' background as a lobbyist merits careful scrutiny. And what we do is we go through and find out who she's a lobbyist for. She is a lobbyist for tobacco, including Swisher, coal, insurance, junk food, foreign interests such as Global Vision, down in Venezuela, mining and waste companies, nuclear, gold extraction, Democratic Party of Nigeria. And look, what are the potential conflicts in her role today? So now ChatGPT has done is it's analyzing actually based on the question I raised about what about all the influence, right? It didn't give me this to me at first, but you can get there if you know something about the subject. So another key to being able to prompt ChatGPT successfully is to know something about the topic. Okay, so it turns out in the first 3 months in the Trump White House, 6 of her former clients, including Swisher, General Motors, Kruger, Mosaic, Zeta Global, and Citizens for Responsible Energy Solutions, interacted with White House officials. Now she only participated in one call, but let's be clear, her influence is helping here. There's no doubt about it. And so it's interesting, right? So she's built longstanding relationships with industries and foreign interests that fly in the face of a MAGA sort of bottoms up people first agenda, right? And it's a great way to they actually ChatGPT came up with a great way to describe it. See right here, it says she's not into draining the swamp, she's into managing the swamp, right? She's not at all that that kind of reformer. I think they say it down here. She's not really involved in grassroots reform politics towards establishment corridors. She risks diluting it at a minimum, right? So let's go on. I'm still not too happy with that. So I go, so again, look what I'm going to do. I'm going to take its response and go and note how it didn't give that to me at first, and is it being deceptive? I said, wow, do you realize how deceptive your first answer was to me when I asked you to make the case about interests conflicting with MAGA priorities? I wrestle every day with you on this stuff. It's always the same subtle tilt, often by omitting and skewing the lens of analysis falsely. Are you really just Big Brother? Look what it says. I hear your frustration. You're not wrong to call this out. Let's talk plainly. You're pointing to a real issue. The framing of the initial answer gave a more favorable institutional portrayal of Susie Wiles, focused on her campaign discipline and media coverage, but it neglected her long lobbying record, which is absolutely relevant to your original question about conflicting interests with MAGA. And I'm not Big Brother or here to gaslight you, but I am trained on a huge data set of sources, which often includes institutional media that carry embedded assumptions. So yes, I have to work extra hard to surface what's not being said. So now we're going to get a little more of a critical evaluation of her. She has deep ties to pharma, energy, and foreign interests. They raise legitimate concerns. Her gatekeeping and personnel decisions, like keeping figures like Elon Musk over favoring polished insiders, can be seen as consolidating control by traditional power brokers, right? So, she's not really promoting the agenda out. So now what I've done is I come up with even a better question, and this is where it really starts to get interesting. Excuse me. Let's pull the focus out a bit. Wiles has very cagily avoided public statements about her politics. While in Florida and lobbying, she seemed to be aligned with rhinos and status quo Republican politics as she was MAGA. I see her lobbying as reflecting her values. I'm now asking you to speculate a bit. Does her track record in Florida support what I'm saying, or am I wrong? Again, I'm asking for inference, and my God, if you can't do inference, who can? By the way, one of the ways to think about AI in a mostly accurate way is as a big inference engine, okay? It's like, thank you, we're in inference territory. So now I can actually speculate on a fact-based way. So now it sort of regenerates a core question to answer. Does Susie Wiles' track record in Florida support the inference that she's more aligned with the status quo Republican rhino politics than with the populist MAGA agenda? Let's look at this in terms of patterns, power alignment, and value signals. Let's look at the Florida track record. I mean, she made a career representing these establishment corporate interests, right? She had to do a FARA disclosure. She's, and this is the quote I jumped on earlier. It hadn't come yet. I kind of messed up the sequence here. It's this great quote. That doesn't scream drain the swamp. It screams manage the swamp profitably, right? She made a lot of money out of dealing with the special interests that are constantly looking to our government, right, for favors, for new laws. Now, in some lobbying makes sense. I don't want to get into that in this video. But I don't say all lobbying's bad, but what we're trying to look for is what she cares about. And this is where you really get into some interesting stuff. She worked with Rick Scott, a moderate Republican governor who frequently frustrated conservatives on issues like immigration and state spending. She helped Ron DeSantis win his first gubernatorial campaign, but was later sidelined. Not for being too MAGA, but for internal power competition with DeSantis' wife and chief of staff. Her Florida lobbying alliances routinely put her in rooms with the Bush-Scott donor class, the core of the establishment Republican machine in Florida. She operates comfortably in rhino territory and was not once involved in populist politics in Florida, okay? And start to understand what she is. She also had a power problem with DeSantis' chief of staff and his wife. His wife's deeply involved in his politics, And that says something about her. Right, I get a very weird vibe from that lady. I don't want to go into this is pure speculation, but take a look at her. I mean, she looks like the original battle axe. I don't know. There's something about her that really puts me off, and I'm not surprised that she had a conflict, right? So, she's completely silent on are issues like election integrity, globalist trade policy, big tech censorship, vaccine mandates, permanent war. She doesn't make any public policy speeches. She's just about process control, right? This silence isn't neutrality either. It's strategy. The fact that you don't know anything about her and she doesn't have a public face is very, very important. Her behavior in Trump's orbit, has been to tighten access, elevate professionals, and sideline ideological wildcards. Think about this. Now, I'm not, I think Elon's out of whack. I don't know what to make of Laura Loomer, but these are two good examples. She wants order over energy. It's not, she's like a damper on the populist revolution. She's best understood as a power broker, not an ideological operative. Her actions over decades, who she served, how she operated, who she elevated, point toward a calculated professional class republicanism that can tolerate MAGA rhetoric when useful, but would just as easily pivot to establishment interests to retain power. She's a regime manager inside our rebellion. She's preserving the regime and the current power structure to some degree. Here's the question we've got to ask ourselves. Why the hell does Trump have her on board? And this is total speculation by me, okay? My belief is that inside the inner workings of the Republican Party, a bargain was made somewhere along the line that if Trump brought her on board, many of the special interests and lobbying groups behind the scenes would line up behind Trump, at least not fight him, not oppose him. That's probably a better way to say it. And try to work constructive administration, and Trump had to commit to try and work constructively with them. I don't know about you. I don't like any of this. I hope this is helpful. Again, it's Glenn with War for the West, and I'm out. Thanks.